Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have another Try a Chapter video. This is the unhaul edition of the Try a Chapter videos, and that's because I have a pile of physical books that I've been looking at on my shelves and I'm not convinced I'm going to read them. And so we are going to give them the chance by reading the first chapter, seeing if it hooks me, whether it's going to stay in the collection, because every so often I do go through my physical books and I just look at them and I'm like, okay, do I still want to read you? Fair enough, some of these books on here I did purchase with the full intent of reading them. That's totally fine. We were allowed to change our mind. Some of these are books that came in subscription boxes, particularly when I was trialing subscription boxes from Australia just to see what they were like. So I received books that I probably wouldn't have necessarily picked up on my own. Others are unsolicited review copies that I've received. There are also freebies from book signings and things like that. So we are just going to go through them, see how I feel, and then if I am not convinced by the first chapter that I want to keep reading, they're just going to be donated to my local charity shop, which is a good way to check my spending, curb my spending. This is always really helpful when I do a big DNF after not reading, to just go, hang on, you don't need to have all of these physical books. It's great. But also DNFing is just like a normal thing and you are allowed to change your mind. So I think we need to normalize that, because when I tell you that I genuinely do not go into buying books with the intention of unhauling them unread, that's not the way that I buy books. Like when I buy it, it's because I'm like, yes, I'm so excited about this, I want to read it. And then sometimes you just get to 12 months later and you haven't picked it up. And there's a reason for that with this ginormous stack of books. There are so many different genres in here. There is romance, there's paranormal romance, there is romantic suspense, there is mystery, there is thriller, there is historical fiction. There's everything in here. Kicking off with reading the first chapter of Raiders of the Lost Heart by Segura. I was super excited by this because I forget how it was. Oh no, it was penned like, it's like in Indiana Jones with adventure and romance and whatever. But I've heard so many mixed and bad reviews of this that I just don't know where I sit, which sucks because look at this cover, it's so fun. I'm going to read the first chapter. The first chapter of Raiders of the Lost Heart is, the way I always term some books like this, aggressively average. So you have Corrie, who is a archaeologist. The book opens, she's in her office, she's been approached by a mysterious guy who won't give her any details on anything about a dig in Mexico that she's wanted for, and apparently there is an anonymous benefactor. And somehow she is convinced to go. I don't know why, that just sounds like a recipe to be murdered. When she gets there, she finds that one of her friends is on the dig, but also her enemy, a guy that she doesn't like, but who she wants to sleep with, regardless of the fact that she hates him. And he's in charge, and so she's furious, and yet she's still convinced to stay. Like, why? Why? That's very dramatic. So I'm not convinced that that's staying, but we'll just, yeah, we'll stay there. Also, the first chapter is 17 pages. Why is it so long? All right, let's go for the next thing in the pile, which is completely different. It is In the Blink of an Eye by Callahan, and this is a crime novel. One detective, one hologram, and a case that will test them both. Ooh, AI. Okay, let's read the first chapter. So I'm definitely intrigued by this one. It does have like an opening prologue thing, which I didn't get so much out of, but the first chapter is about Kat, who is what was her rank? It's British, so I'm always confused by these. Detective Chief Superintendent. She's 40 years old, she's had some time off from being at work. I am suspecting that something has happened to her partner or her husband, and she's been caring for her son who is about to start university or return to university. So she wants to come back to work, and she comes back in, she's meeting with her old boss, and he basically tells her he's got the perfect job for her, in that the new Home Secretary has this plan to introduce more artificial intelligent detective technology in order to cut costs and whatever. And both her boss and Kat think it's ridiculous, and she thinks that she is overqualified for this job, but he points out that he wants someone who is a good detective, who can prove that relying on the technology actually isn't going to be the best use of time and resources. So I'm intrigued by that one. That one could potentially be staying. Next on the list is a book that was sent to me unsolicited, The Hazelbourne Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club. This is by Helen Simonson. So it's a historical book. So we'll try this chapter too. All right, so the first chapter is set in a hotel, and Constance is a woman who I think is staying there. Anyway, she comes across Poppy, who is trying to get into an afternoon tea service. This is all historical. and Poppy won't be let in because she's wearing trousers because she's been riding a motorcycle. And so Poppy asks Constance to lend her a skirt and then invites her to tea and then also to dinner afterwards. Not sure I'm going to continue with this one, just because it's not really my kind of story. Next up is Dirt Town by Hayley Scrivenor, which is an Australian mystery thriller, mystery crime book. This has a very short chapter, which one I'm very appreciative of, but also it doesn't really give much information. It's about some people watching a man move a body that has been discovered. Yeah, like it has a really weird writing style because it starts out saying we watched and then it's describing the man as they're watching him. I don't know. I'm going to keep this as a potential. Definitely not to read today. I think I need at least a couple more chapters just to decide whether the writing style is going to work for me, because I think it's a little bit different. All right, then we have Gone to Ground by Bronwyn Hall, and I can't remember where I got this from. No idea. All right, so Gone to Ground is about a UN surgeon named Rachel who is working, I think, in the middle of the Democratic Republic of the Congo jungle. It's really interesting because it opens, she's just lost a patient that has been brought in. She's also caring for an 8-year-old girl who has been injured, and they're about to be airlifted out that afternoon. However, a group of UN soldiers stumble across their little camp and she's trying to save the life of one of the men. So that's kind of where we get to, where she's just sort of meeting the leader of the group and, you know, just her thoughts on the situation and the fact that she wishes she could do more, but she's limited by the supplies that she has. So that's chapter 1. I'm kind of intrigued, honestly. That one's probably going to stay. But next on the list is Reaching Through Time, Finding My Family Stories by Shauna Bostock, which was another unsolicited review copy that I received last year. Let's start reading. So I read the introduction. There is a chapter 1, but the introduction is long enough that it's actually a really good insight into the book. This is really well, like the introduction is really well written. So it is about Shauna Bostock, who is sharing the research she has done into her family history. So she is an Indigenous Australian woman. She has included, you know, a map of her family tree all the way down to her. And it's based on, all of the book is based on the research she's done into the history of her family members. There's a really lovely line at the end of the introduction, which she says, you know, Henry Reynolds said, truth-telling is the ultimate gesture of respect. It indicates a willingness to listen, to learn, and to concede that the stories should be heard of those who have been victims of great wrongs. And Shauna writes after that, I'd like to acknowledge and express my deep gratitude to you, the readers of the book. Our stories need to be heard, and I'm thankful for your willingness to listen and learn about the historical experiences of my ancestors and other Aboriginal people in Australia's history. And that's kind of important, and it kind of resonates with me because part of the introduction talks about how many white Australians, particularly of my generation and older, were not taught about Australian Indigenous history at all. And what we were taught was incorrect and basically whitewashed. I do enjoy reading stories and books by Indigenous authors that are telling history because it's just another way to piece together puzzles. I think I've looked before to see if this has an audiobook, just because I feel like I would possibly pick it up sooner if it has an audiobook, but I don't think it does. No, but that's fine. I really enjoyed the writing style, so that one's going to stay. Then we have another unsolicited book. This is Mrs. Hopkins by Shirley Barrett. Chapter 1 opens with Mrs. Hopkins on a boat to Cockatoo Island just outside of Sydney Harbour, and she is a teacher and she's been sent there to instruct the girls that are living on the island that are part of the Bilola Industrial School for Girls. Essentially the first chapter is just her on this boat talking to the ticket master who is trying to convince her not to get off the boat. Basically just saying the girls on the island are wanton and are foul-mouthed and there's just no point. You should just stay on the boat and come back. There's nothing for you there. But she's determined to go on. This one, I'm not convinced that I'm going to continue reading. The writing is great though. It's not the writing that's the issue. I think it's just more the historical kind of story. Next up we have Gabbie Stroud's The Things That Matter Most. This is the one that I keep putting off just because it deals with situations in schools and teachers and small towns, and I am not convinced it's going to be like it was going to be super triggering the year that I received it. So this is probably one of the oldest books that I have. When did it come out? Because I know I emailed the publisher back and just said, hey look, thanks for sending it, but at this point in time I can't read it. It's too triggering for me at the moment. So it came out August last year. We had a lot of stuff going on at work last year that was going to make this book not one that I needed to pick up. All right, how long is this first chapter? Okay, 10 pages. Like all of Gabbie Stroud's writing, it's beautifully written, yet I have this very deep sense of foreboding, and I still think that this book is probably going to be slightly triggering for me just because of the content and the way it's centered around a school and the things that happen in school settings. So I may pass that on to someone else who would really enjoy reading it. I think I would struggle with it, and that's just a personal thing for me, not an indictment on the book, because I think the book itself, knowing Gabbie Stroud, has a really important message in it, but sometimes things are just a little too close to home. So next on the list is Love from Scratch by Amy Hutton. I received this as a freebie at a book signing. It was an ARC copy of it, so let's see what it's about. So the first chapter of Love from Scratch introduces both characters. So Ethan is an actor, and he's about to start shooting a movie, but he's got a highly anxious dog, which is causing him a lot of stress. And we also meet Hazel, who I'm assuming is going to be the FMC in the story, and Ethan's publicist has contacted her to dog sit Ethan's dog while he is shooting the film on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. I'm kind of intrigued. I think I'm more intrigued because this is Australian. I would probably give it a go just based on that. Right, then we have The Wolf Within by MJ Scott. I've read MJ Scott before. I just don't know if I'm feeling this particular story, so yeah, let's try the first chapter. So after reading the first chapter of The Wolf Within, I am intrigued. It is about Ash, who is human. She seems to be some kind of private investigator, and she's just been approached by an ex-lover, Dan, who is also now a werewolf. And he's come to her because he would like her help in tracking down the vampire that killed her family. So that is an intriguing opening, and I was umming and ahhing about it, but you know what, if I don't read it in October, then it will go, because that's a perfect October read. And then finally I have Wolf by Rebecca Zanetti, which is Stoke Pack's book 1. I got this as a freebie at Rare last year, so we're going to try the chapter and see if I want to keep it. So this book opens with Mia, who is a former FBI agent who has been asked to come in and interview or talk to a guy that is in prison. His name is Seth, about a murder that he's been accused of committing. And they have this back and forth, and he gets information out of her, and she comments that he could be a profiler himself, which is always the case with a lot of those very, very smart, very intelligent people who get away with things, right? Anyway, his bail is posted, and so he's out, and so the last part of the chapter is him basically warning her to get out of town, to stay away from everything that's going on, otherwise she will end up dead. Yeah, not convinced about this one. So the ones that I'm definitely going to keep at the moment are The Wolf Within, Love from Scratch, Reaching Through Time, Gone to Ground, and Blink of an Eye, or In the Blink of an Eye. The ones I am going to donate are Wolf, The Things That Matter Most, Mrs. Hopkins, Dirt Town, Raiders of the Lost Heart, and the Hazelbourne Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club, which is not bad because I'm clearing out more books than I'm keeping, so that is always helpful. Hopefully you will see me read some of these in a little while, but in the comments I would love to know if you've read any of these books. If there's something that I should prioritize from the stack that I'm keeping, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, feel free to leave a book stack emoji down below. I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.